So my top 5 favorite books so far this year. I think there's a little bit of arrogance that comes with making videos like this, because I'm sat here sort of like implying that some books are better than others, objectively, you know. Um, that might be true, but who gives me the right to say that? But anyways, that's what I'm still going to do. I'm still going to give you a top 5 books I've read so far this year. Not books that came out in this year, but books that I read in this year. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, this list was surprisingly easy to make just because I haven't read a lot of books this year. Also, from the books or from the little selection that I had to pick from, there were lots of rereads, and books that I've read before and reread again this year don't come into this list. They have to be books that I've read for the first time this year. I hope that makes sense. Anyways, let's get into the list. The first book, or number 5, I'm going in the reverse order. Number 5 is Earthlings by Sayaka Murata. I hope I pronounced that name well. I think this is probably one of the darkest and most bizarre books I've ever read. So it follows the story of 2 people who had rough and traumatic childhoods, and they've grown now and they're trying to fit in a society that's clearly not suited to how they are, how they want to live their lives, or who they want to be. So it deals with these themes of societal pressure and the struggle to find freedom, or the struggle to live the way we want in societies that we live in, or if we should even consider living free. Is there any value to live in the way that the society wants us to live? So it sort of explores this, and I thought it was really deep. I liked the way the book was written. It felt like a children's book at times, and because of this, it was very accessible, and it also made a lot of the bizarre and dark bits not as jarring as they could have otherwise been if it was written in a more serious tone, I think. Also, sometimes I remember reading it feeling like it was witnessing a car crash, where it's like, you shouldn't be looking at this or reading this, but somehow you just can't take your eyes off it. The next one is Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. This is one that I've always wanted to read, but somehow this year I read it and I really loved it. So what's it about? The devil comes to Moscow for a play and immediately sets to wreaking havoc on the entire population of the city. And there's also a subplot about Pontius Pilate and his guilt about the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. I went into this book blind, and for some reason, because it was Russian, I was expecting the book to be like a soup of existential crisis, but it wasn't that at all. So I was just surprised all the way through reading this book. It was very quirky and fun, and sometimes it just read like a fairy tale, and I really love that about it. There were lots of references to the state of things in the Soviet Union at the time, and I didn't get a lot of those references. The copy I read had footnotes, or that helped with sort of getting some of the references, but still I feel like I probably would have enjoyed it a lot more if I knew a lot about the state of things at the time in the Soviet Union. But still, I love the explorations of the themes between like the relationship between good and evil. The next book, number 3, War and Peace. This one I've talked about in my last video, so you can watch that if you want to hear me go in depth about what I think about War and Peace. I think this book is about everything, really. If you're going to write a book that's 1,000+ pages long, I think this is how you want to justify having that many pages in your book. Not to go too much into detail, but what I liked about it is, I would say, the characters. The characters, I think, are the best thing about the book. The book spans, 18 to 20 years? And after reading the book, by the end of the page, you really feel like you have lived 18 to 20 years with these characters. See how much they've developed, how they changed and stuff like that. And that was just beautiful. And the themes were just represented in the way these characters changed over the years. And it just leaves you after reading the book with a lot to think about. What I didn't like as much, I think that the interludes between the book where the author is trying to explore his opinions on free will, they got repetitive. After the first and the second time, you sort of like get the idea. So him doing it on and on and on again, that wasn't as much fun to read. Also, there was some things that would just seem too convenient, like characters bumping into each other at the right time, where it was just not, it just wouldn't happen in the real world, you know. Sometimes a plot line needs to be resolved, and somehow those two characters just somehow conveniently bump into each other. There were things like that happening in the book, but this is me being nitpicky though. Those things didn't in any way affect my enjoyment of the book. I just think that if I wanted to be, I don't know, nitpick to find things that I didn't like, it would be those two. But yeah, that's it for War and Peace. The number 2, I wanted to say the second book, but this would be like the 4th book. Number 2, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Wait, hold on a sec. Did I say the author of the last book? War and Peace by Leo Tolstoy, if I didn't say that. Anyways, the next book is The Unbearable Lightness of Being by Milan Kundera. Now, this one was set in Czech Republic during the Soviet occupation of Prague. I hope I said that correctly. It has multiple storylines, but the main one I think is the story of this couple who are clearly in love with each other, but somehow the man can't seem to stop himself from, or can't seem to stop his desires from wanting to sleep with other women. And it sort of explores the sacrifices that they had to go through because of this, how love can be freeing and sometimes hold you captive as well. There's also a subplot in the book that deals with the consequences of being free as opposed to being tethered. So sort of exploring this duality between lightness and heaviness by being free and being tethered, which sort of reflects in the name of the book as well, The Unbearable Lightness of Being. The writing is beautiful. The ideas are profound. I found myself highlighting a lot of stuff when I was reading the book, and when this happens to me anyways, because I don't do that a lot, so when this happens, it's just fun for me, because it means that the book is giving me a lot to think about. And from reading the book right from the first page, the way he writes and the way he's exploring his ideas, you just know that this author is an intellectual. And I also love it when you know that, but then they don't make the book hard for you to read as well. Like, it's very accessible and you get in the ideas, and it didn't leave me behind at all. It's highly philosophical. It can be tricky to read because the author is adding a lot of his opinions there as well. So, you know, while reading the book, you have to be watchful for that, because you should not take his opinions as kosher. Anyways, that's it for The Unbearable Lightness of Being. Highly, highly recommend that one. Then, number 1, The Stranger by Albert Camus. If you've watched any of my videos, you probably knew that this would be the number 1. Also, I did a review of this one, if you want to check that out as well. The thing about that review though is I've been thinking about it a lot since I read the book, obviously, and I think some opinions I had about the book in the review have changed a little bit now. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of the book. Still love it 100%. Of course, it's the number 1, but just I think about things a little bit differently now. And that's one thing I like about books like this, books that you keep on thinking about, and every time you think about it, there's also something new that I guess you can get from just turning over the ideas in your mind. The book is about life. It's almost like, why do anything? Why is anything worth indulging in? Why go to work tomorrow? Why tell your friend you love him or her, you know? All just beautiful stuff. So I'm not saying the plot for this one just because it doesn't matter. This is a book that I think, because it's so short, it's probably best if you go into it as blind as you possibly can. But yeah, it's one that you should definitely read, I think. Anyways, that's it for this video. Try to make it as short as I possibly could. So, you know, catch you in the next one. Bye.